So we're live now, which is great. Uh, you've done one or a few of these, or this is a first?
This would be, I believe, a third,
Uh-huh.
something like that, but it's been a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope the people who are coming agree. I'm a fan of the format. I mean, it provides a kind of flexibility to connect with people and to do so, wherever you are. And the facility of it just makes a lot of things possible, which is fantastic. Conversations that you can have that you just might not if we were operating in the traditional kind of journalistic platform, right?
Right?
So we're
Michael Fanone has joined. I saw Michael Fanone has joined, the
yeah, nice,
extraordinary Michael Fanone.
right. So let's just take another moment. Hello to Dave. Hello to all the people who have joined us. I just start by saying I had taken a few days. Actually, you and I had started to talk about probably a week ago about the idea of having this conversation, sort of knowing the possibility that Bari Weiss was going to be selected as the editor in chief of CBS News. And I think we wanted to take a little time to see how this unfolded. But the announcement happened today, which is why this, is absolutely the right time to dig in and try to ask ourselves what the hell is going on here. I think it's sort of on two fronts. What does it say about journalism? What does it say about our political situation right now? And I think we're going to talk about both of those things in the minutes that we have. So let me jump in and say I'm here with Merrill Brown, who I'm happy can join us. He's a former television network executive, editor, and media reporter. He was the founding editor in chief of MSNBC.com. A remarkable accomplishment, the co-founder of the Online News Association and the founding director of the Montclair State University School of Communication and Media. That amongst many other accomplishments. And the truth is that's a lot of founding. And maybe appropriate to talk about Bari Weiss, the founder of the Free Press, who's selling her enterprise to Paramount for $150 million and becoming the editor in chief of CBS. A person with no news experience, no reporting experience, and no experience in broadcast journalism. So, what do you think? Let's
Well,
start there.
Stephen, that's just the tip of the iceberg about what's extraordinary about this. I mean, we can get into the politics of it soon, but in terms of broadcast history, no one with a background like this has ever run a television news organization of this scale. No one with this ideological pedigree, meaning for her journalism experience, she's a pundit and opinion writer, basically. Her
Right.
reporting experience is limited. And at best, she has run a small, important site, the Free Press, which is a significant accomplishment, and she merits credit for that. And in many ways, that should be an inspiration to people like you, Stephen, who can build something from scratch and really have it matter and have it be an important voice in the political dialogue. And the Free Press and her work has been an important voice shaping part of the political conversation of the moment, generally around her critique of woke policies and her unequivocal support for Israel.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting profile for somebody to be running a network news division.
Yeah.
Now, there are people listening to us right now who are snickering a little bit about CBS News because it's not what it once was, and it'll never be what it once was, but it still matters. More people watch CBS News than watch the cable news channels for the most part, in terms of at least the half hour at 6:30 and 60 Minutes, the most successful news programming in television history. She'll be running that. And CBS News still sends people around the world with cameras covering the news, bringing back pictures from places like Gaza and elsewhere in the Middle East and Western Europe and so forth. And how many news organizations can say they're doing that with any frequency and with any resources?
Right.
So this remains an important part of the news and political dialogue in this country, even if it's diminished and even if it's not Walter Cronkite's network any longer.
Right, but here we are, independent journalism, and yes, let's honor the achievement of 3 years of a free press and building it into something that somebody wants to buy for $150 million. That's one thing. But the decision that this is the person who is the best person to essentially run CBS News. What does it say about the state of broadcast journalism?
Well, for one thing, it says money talks. The people behind this are the father and son Ellison team, Ellison being the founder of Oracle, one of the top half dozen richest people in the world. His son now controls Paramount with money that he has raised and money that his family has allocated to him, so to speak. So this is a rich, rich family. So this is no question about the fact that this is money and big money. And it's also Republican pro Israel money.
Yeah.
And, again, that's not a particularly profound observation, but it's important to know that that's where they're coming from, and that's what this is about. They are Republicans, they are staunchly pro Israel, and they've decided to invest in a very large network and the free press because of what the free press stands for, not necessarily because of Weiss's ability to run a large organization, something she's never done, but what she stands for in the political landscape. And that's another very unusual part of all this, something that's never happened before. One thing you and I were talking about earlier is political people have stepped into news jobs before. And in fact, the revolving political journalism door in Washington, D.C., which George Stephanopoulos has stepped through, and Tim Russert has stepped through, and others have stepped through, is as old as television. People go in and out of media and journalism all the time in that world. But never has there been anything like this, where somebody who is a clear ideologue with no experience, not just a Senate staffer as Tim Russert was, but somebody who really stands for an ideological point of view, has stepped into a managerial position of this scale. So what we have now is a partisan Republican controlling CBS News, the largest news network, and often the largest cable network in the country, and often the largest viewership in the country, Fox News, controlled by Rupert Murdoch, a really important part of the American news diet. All these important journalistic organizations are in the hands of Trump-friendly people. And let's not forget the Washington Post, which is also in the hands of a Trump-friendly executive, Jeff Bezos, as well.
Yeah, and if you look at the last years of the free press, I mean, she came into the job. She started this with a very clear kind of anti-woke, critique of the left and culture and politics, and that critique, now, I mean, today in her own announcement, she tried to refer to this as sort of, this is about the illiberalism of our institutions over the last decade, and she talked about this sort of the both sides, right? It's an American loathing far left, she wrote, and a history erasing far right. Well, I have problems with both of those things, particularly the notion that the far left is intrinsically America loathing. But it sounds as if she's
What's wrong with
already trying to rewrite a little bit what the history here is.
What's wrong with the history rewriting far right? I mean, they're changing museums, they're changing national parks, they're changing textbooks, they're doing all they can to put a different spin on American history, and I think that's a factual observation.
Yeah,
Less factual is that the far left is America loathing. I'm not even sure who she's talking about there. Is she
yeah.
talking about Senator Sanders from Vermont, or AOC from New York, or any other members of Congress who are on the far left? Is she talking about the people who run Indivisible? Who is she talking about when she talks about hating America? I'm not familiar with mainstream people in the political dialogue on the far left who hate America.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for saying it, and
Well, I teed that one up for you, Stephen. So
yeah. Well, look, I mean, the country is in a state right now where we're dealing with a regime and a leader of that regime who has been dismantling democratic institutions day by day, and undermining the values and principles that have defined the country. I mean, this is escalating; it's not de-escalating, and so there's no getting around the fact that this decision by David Ellis to put in place Bari Weiss suggests that he's all all in. He's more than ready to appease Donald Trump. And I mean, for anyone who wants to ask the question is like, is she going to somehow now move more to the center, right? She's going to be what she's described herself as a radical centrist. Well, if you look at, and I made a point of looking at the homepage of the Free Press before we started, and I counted 15 stories that were of like the last few days, and there was only one headline that even involved Donald Trump, right? And that one said what Shakespeare understood about Trump's thirst for revenge. So she and her Trump friendly outlet are very good at letting Trump off the hook. That seems to me to be a very dangerous move on the part of what used to be a journalistic institution that you could count on confronting power, good and bad.
Well, the Free Press, in fairness, in some fairness, has been outspoken about the silencing of Jimmy Kimmel. They have been covering, I think, at least in a factual basis, the immigration situations and military situations in Chicago, Portland, and Washington, D.C. They have pointed out that the troops in Washington, D.C. spend an enormous amount of time tending to the gardens of the city and picking up trash. That's been noted on the Free Press. So I would say in a post anti-woke world, they've been searching actually for what they are. And if that search continues on CBS News and includes holding to a certain extent Trump's feet to the fire, that would be great. It's unknown how 60 Minutes will fit into that. 60 Minutes, as you probably know, and our audience knows, has been very critical of Trump administration policies. They've been very aggressive, especially in long interview segments with dissidents, people who have left the Trump administration. We have to only wonder whether we'll be seeing those segments in a few weeks once she's gotten her arms around the 60 Minutes news agenda.
So, how much would you anticipate that she's sort of there as a figurehead to serve sort of the interests of Trump and the desire to sort of go along with the regime, with the administration, and there will be other people who essentially will be running the news operations. How would you expect that to shape out?
Well, she no more knows how to produce a television news show than you know how to coach the New York Rangers. So there have to be people around here, and the president of CBS News, her purported partner in this venture, is a television news professional with a long history in local news and national news, and he'll be making sure the stuff gets on the air every day. What the commentators say and what actually is the content of that is what's in question, and we just really don't know. My view is she's going to have a talk show. Maybe it'll be a Sunday morning talk show. Maybe it'll be a nightly commentary on the CBS Evening News. Maybe they'll start a primetime program and attempt in primetime to compete with CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. She'll want the moon and the stars on TV because she really sees herself as a news celebrity and as an asset to CBS in that regard. And it'll be interesting to see what venue she chooses. They also have a 24-hour streaming network, CBS News Now, which probably tens of our listeners have watched and heard of. But CBS has continued to invest in it. And in fact, one of their major on-air talents, Major Garrett, now has a nightly 5 p.m. show on the CBS News streaming channel. So they seem to be taking it seriously. And maybe that's a big part of the future she sees ahead, a 24-hour news network with nothing but news that she can really shape a la Fox or MSNBC.
Yeah, well, let's use Major Garrett as an example. That he was somebody who took a very hard look at election fraud and what happened, in that last election, specifically digging into the question of the big lie. So he's definitely one of those voices who's taken a pretty critical look at the effort on the part of Trump to rewrite history. Do you think that there are people at CBS News that are in trouble now? I mean, who are at risk of losing their jobs because this sort of anti woke leader is now in place?
Well, first of all, one of her short-term missions, which is not going to be fun in the least bit, is she's supposed to lose 10% of the overhead right away.
Yeah,
So some number of people are going to be on the cutting room floor, so to speak, immediately. And it wouldn't be surprising if some of the more aggressive liberal or perceived liberal-leaning reporters are excised in that regard. And a number of those people are in the senior levels of the CBS News on-air contingent, and we'll see how they get through this set of cuts.
yeah,
Um, there are also on-air people in places like Sunday Morning and on-air commentary opportunities on Sunday Morning. Again, another storied show. I mean, CBS Sunday Morning is a legendary program watched by millions of people, one of the most successful programs in the history of television. In fact, so successful that one of the CBS recent regimes changed all their morning shows to mimic the name of CBS Sunday Morning. So it's now mornings at CBS. So
right.
they're very proud of that brand, and it's a wonderful show, appealing generally to older viewers. But she has 90 minutes there every Sunday to craft, and again, that's another opportunity to insert commentary and opinion-oriented pieces if she so chooses. So she does have opportunities to do stuff without necessarily tampering or playing with the guts of the coverage.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's one thing to talk about sort of commentary and sort of the angle or bias of a particular story. It's another thing to say, oh, there's X number of stories on the show. Which ones are going to be spotlighted, right? What stories are going to be told, and which are the stories that in her leadership are going to be no longer considered the appropriate stories. I'm returning to 15 stories at the top of the Free Press, and but one is actually even referencing Donald Trump. So I do worry about the extent to which this is not only going to be playing to her own predilections, but also exactly denying those things that she finds offensive for one reason or another.
And
What
this is
about
a real. She's got a really important moment right now to see where she stands on the Middle East.
yeah,
We are at a critical moment in the peace process in the Middle East. Maybe we're really on to something right here. And she has been very outspoken about Gaza and supportive of what Israel has done in Gaza, and actually was one of the loudest voices in the country criticizing the New York Times several months ago about the picture of the sick child who was bombed in a hospital. And there was great controversy about that picture, and she led the charge on it. The debate being about whether the baby, the child, was ill with a degenerative disease, or whether that baby was a victim of a bombing or not. And she was screaming, and they were screaming about this story. They may have broken it, actually. Became a huge firestorm. The New York Times explained itself later, didn't withdraw the picture or anything else, but right now, and how Gaza evolves and how CBS News and the Free Press is going to shape that discussion is going to be very telling about who they're going to be.
yeah, yeah. So let me do two things. One, I want to share with you what David Ellison's sort of summary is of what she's brought there for, and it's very much kind of business speak, but I want you to decode it for us, right? Weiss will quote shape editorial priorities, champion core values across platforms, and lead innovation and how the organization reports and delivers the news. What do you hear?
Well, first of all, there's nothing innovative, technically or otherwise, about the Free Press. I mean, it is a newspaper-ish website with often excellent writing and so forth, but there is no history of innovation there. So, will she be able to hire people who will be smart about the technology and may use creative applications and AI in interesting ways? Maybe, but there's no evidence for her past that she's going to do that.
Yeah.
Secondly, she's going to start going to editorial meetings probably as soon as the day after tomorrow or even tomorrow with a notebook, as she has said, and start listening and chiming in editorial meetings and starting to take control slowly but surely. He will be addressing the evening news lineup in their morning call or morning meetings, and many people are on those meetings, and those meetings are going to get recorded immediately. And as soon as she steps over some perceived line, CBS News people are going to be leaking those recorded meetings to friendly press members. So she should know that she's walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
And outlandish ideological statements in the middle of news meetings are going to be recorded and are going to be shared. And I'll bet you within 60 days, there is a witch hunt for leaks because they're going to happen very soon. Because
Yeah.
as you know, news organizations leak.
Yeah.
So there may be a level of interesting transparency there because the professionals at CBS News are not going to put up for a lot of ideological tinkering with what they do every day, quietly at least.
Yeah. So for me, the last thing is about, what this says about sort of the state of journalism, and I think it cuts a couple of ways. One, it's about sort of the decline of its sort of impact, which make and the rise of these sort of billionaire owners that makes it possible for somebody like this to get brought in and it to be treated as a reality that we all just need to adapt to. That's one thing, but the other side of this is, you know I think most of the people on this conversation would agree that the need for independent media has exactly been because of the failure of traditional media to take a hard look, to use strong language, to speak vividly, clearly, honestly, fearlessly about this administration and these years of Donald Trump in the White House. And here we are, rather than a decision made to strengthen, the journalism and the position of CBS News. Instead, you have somebody that looks to me like they're going to, kowtow and appease. So, is there any reason to think differently?
Well, I guess on one level, it sort of depends on where the money is and where the eyeballs are. And I don't think, in the context of the strength of Fox News, being a right wing network is an open lane at the moment. Being something different, and she's made a career out of being something different. Maybe there's a middle ground there that is the place where the audience is, right? They're not necessarily on the far right, and they're not necessarily on the far left, and maybe a business positioning for CBS News is somewhere in the middle. And I think we can perhaps keep an eye on that and take a little bit of solace in the fact that the right lane is filled.
Yeah. Well,
The dominant, most successful news channel in this country, without question, in terms of its impact, is Fox News.
yeah.
And they're not gonna bring down or necessarily go after Fox News, and maybe there's a creative middle lane for younger people who are in the middle trying to figure out where to go that she can fill. We'll see if that's I don't know if that's what the Ellisons really want. We know they want unequivocal support for Israel. I
Yeah.
don't think we won't see critical coverage of Israel in the short term, especially with the peace plan on the bubble right now. I think you can say that with some confidence. But in terms of where the American viewing public is and the American electorate, I think from a business point of view, maybe the middle is open and she'll go get it. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, all right. A year from now, I'd like to say that CBS News continued to do significant journalism and has been an important pushback against the excesses, the extremes, the dangers of this regime. I'm not optimistic about it. And I honestly wish that there was a decision made that would have brought in something that would give me more optimism.
Well, let's see. Let's also see who she hires. I
Yeah.
mean, I assume she's going to have an opportunity to fill important jobs with people who reflect her worldview. And if they are experienced people, that could be very interesting. I mean, let's not forget, there are a lot of people who've come out of conservative media who are actually in high profile positions today in mainstream media. She employs one now named Robert Costa. Robert Costa is thought to be a very credible reporter. He was
Yeah.
the Washington editor of the National Review. Caitlin Collins, who's on at 9 o'clock at CNN, comes out of the right wing media as well, where she started her career. So it's quite possible that maybe some quality people could come out of that world and please both her money and her audience. We'll see. But keep an eye on the Middle East coverage in particular, which I think will be telling very quickly. We won't have to wait a year to find out.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm gonna say let's keep our fingers crossed. Maybe a year from now, we can have this conversation again. Merrill, thanks for taking the time to do it, and for everyone who's joined us, thank you. Let's just say, independent media still matters. You know, for
Sure
those
does.
of you who follow and subscribe to America, thank you. Let's keep expanding the role of independent media so that we can have, I think, a kind of a wider pushback and a wider presentation of ideas at a time when it's becoming seriously more challenging.
And let's remember what happened with Disney and Kimmel, that people rose up, they dropped their subscriptions. It mattered to the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, and he reversed his position. And the same thing could happen here. We're talking about Paramount Plus. If they don't perform properly in the point of view of our the listeners here today or others, their movies can be boycotted, their streaming channel can be dropped. There are ways to influence them, as I think the Kimmel story gives us hope.
Well, there you are. I appreciate you saying it. We're all in this together. Your participation. I'm talking to everybody who's here. Your participation matters, and we do actually. Let's not doubt our power to have some impact here.
Keep
So,
up the good work, Stephen.
thank you, Meryl. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.